Ichigo's powers and forms are really extensive, but is it surprising when he literally embodies all aspects of power within him? His hybrid Shinigami, Hollow and Quincy powers manifest in many different ways. On this channel, I've made an effort to dive into every transformation and power that Ichigo exhibits within Bleach. I have now reached the most pivotal transformation that literally brings all sides of his power together in a new all-powerful form. Ichigo's true Shikai was revealed along with so many details about Ichigo's heritage during the 1000-year Blood War arc. In this video, I want to focus on the impactful dual-bladed Shikai that Ichigo awakens after Old Man Zangetsu releases the limits on his power, and after Nimaiya, the creator of the zanpakuto, personally reforges his blade for him. So without further delay, let's dive into my explanation of Ichigo's true Shikai. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. Ichigo's dual-bladed Shikai is first revealed in chapter 547. I remember the first time having read this chapter and feeling absolutely shocked at seeing Ichigo holding two separate blades. The process of restoring Ichigo's zanpakuto had begun after his Bankai Tensai Zangetsu was broken by Hashward during the Quincy's first invasion of the Soul Society. When Ichigo was taken up to the royal palace and had arrived within Uetsu Nimaiya's domain, he was tasked with finding an Asuchi that would be willing to submit to him. However, out of a sea of potential options, they had all rejected Ichigo. Not a single one of them had deemed him worthy of being their master. There was a fundamental reason behind why this had occurred. It was because Ichigo was not at peace with the demons from his past. Additionally, he was far from being able to utilize his full potential, because he knows nothing about Hollow Ichigo and Old Man Zangetsu, the two spirits that reside within him. Uetsu Nimaiya had taken drastic measures to nudge Ichigo in the right direction. He knew that from the get-go, Ichigo had an imbalanced or incomplete version of his zanpakuto. This explains why Renji and Ichigo both were picked to go to the royal palace. Renji was using an incomplete version of his Bankai, while Ichigo was wielding an incomplete form of his entire zanpakuto. At the end of chapter 527, after 3 days and 3 nights, Ichigo had failed to submit an Asuchi. Despite him pleading with Nimaiya for more time, he deemed him to be a failure. He knows that no matter how much he tries, he will never be chosen by an Asuchi in his current state. He tells him that he is no longer a Shinigami, so he has no business being here. He is effectively told to never come back to the Soul Society again because he doesn't have a zanpakuto, so he is nothing more than an ordinary human. Nimaiya decides that he is not going to fix Zangetsu for him, since he isn't a real Shinigami. He still, however, commends Ichigo for the fact that he was able to achieve so much without having a real Asuchi. He tells him that he needs to go back to his roots. The Bleach 1000-year Blood War arc anime trailer actually references this quote, as they pay homage to it with the Revert Your Roots line, which was seen during the first trailer that was released of the new anime. Nimaiya knows a lot about Ichigo and his circumstances, and this is why he is deliberate with his actions. He tells himself that Ichigo needs to learn about his roots, even if the end result is that he never steps foot within the Soul Society again. He is fully aware of his troubled origin. He knows the reason why he was born special, and the reason why Ichigo has never had a proper Asuchi, thus explaining why he has not yet formed a proper bond with his zanpakuto. As Nimaiya had stated, if a zanpakuto is not loved by its owner, then it is prone to being easily broken. We learn that an Asuchi is a nameless zanpakuto that is created by Nimaiya, and every Shinigami who joins the Gotei 13 is given one. While this blade is carried around, the wielder's soul begins to imprint itself onto this nameless zanpakuto, and it eventually forms a unique zanpakuto spirit that perfectly complements the soul of its owner. This occurs after eating, sleeping, and fighting alongside one zanpakuto for a considerable amount of time. It results in a close bond forming between the blade and its master. Nimaiya states that because Renji and Ichigo had neglected their zanpakuto, it has angered all of the Asuchi surrounding them, thus explaining why they had struggled so much to submit an Asuchi to their will, because all of the nameless zanpakuto are reluctant to pair up with a master who will neglect them. In chapter 529, Nimaiya asks Renji why he didn't say anything when he had sent Ichigo back to Karakura Town. Renji responds by saying that Nimaiya knows the state of every Asuchi that he has created, and because he is the creator of the zanpakuto, his decisions are frankly unquestionable. Nimaiya didn't say or do anything wrong here. Factually speaking, Ichigo never had a proper Asuchi. He was wielding a zanpakuto without one, which means that he wasn't a real Shinigami. You have to to remember that Nimaiya had only agreed to reforge the zanpakuto if both of them were able to submit at least one asuchi to their will. Renji was already aware at the onset of this challenge that Ichigo would not be able to complete it. Nimaiya reveals that the only way that Ichigo can acquire his own asuchi is if he learns and accepts where his soul lies, and this leads into one of the biggest mysteries of the entire series, which is ultimately Ichigo's genetic lineage, which finally will explain why he was born special. Ichigo is a heavily conflicted character who struggles to come to terms with his past. After he learns about the way that he was born, how he has inherited powers from a Shinigami and a holified Quincy, he ends up returning to Nimaiya's palace. After he finds inner harmony and he learns to accept himself, every asuchi kneels before him, as they recognize him at last. When Ichigo picks one of the nameless zanpakuto, it ends up transforming into a form that resembles Hollow Ichigo. Nimaiya then proceeds to reforge his zanpakuto as he tells Ichigo to bid farewell to his former zanpakuto Zangetsu. He goes on to comment about Ichigo's surprise when he had first seen the form that his asuchi had taken after he had touched it. He reveals that the source of Ichigo's Shinigami powers is his inner hollow. This is his real zanpakuto spirit. The inner hollow that resides within Ichigo was created from an experimental hollow that Aizen had made by combining a Shinigami with a hollow, thus explaining why in terms of composition, Hollow Ichigo is very similar to an asuchi. Nimaiya also tells Ichigo that Old Man Zangetsu is not his real zanpakuto spirit. He is in fact a manifestation of his latent Quincy abilities. Up until this point in the story, Ichigo was wielding a zanpakuto made up of his Shinigami and hollow powers, but when Nimaiya ended up reforging his blade using a real asuchi, he was then able to use all aspects of his power. During this time, Ichigo had entered into his inner world and had spoken to Old Man Zangetsu. This is where he had learnt about the true intentions of Old Man Zangetsu as he comes to terms with his heritage, and he finally understands the spirits that reside within his soul. His true zanpakuto and powers were being suppressed by Old Man Zangetsu, but once he finally had lifted the restrictions placed upon his powers, Ichigo was able to use his Quincy, Hollow and Shinigami powers, which are represented by his dual-bladed, constantly released Shikai. One of his blades is the same size as his previous zanpakuto. This longer blade represents Ichigo's combined Hollow and Shinigami powers. These are sourced from Hollow Ichigo, while on the other hand, the shorter second blade represents his newly activated Quincy powers, which are sourced from Old Man Zangetsu. Similar to his false Shikai, Ichigo's true Shikai is in a constantly released state. He also carries forward abilities that he was able to use in the past, but they are powered up in this new form, like his signature Getsuga Tensho that he fires. In general, this attack allows Ichigo to absorb his Reiatsu into his blade as he fires it back out in a condensed wave of energy from the tip of his blade. This energy is also amplified at the moment of release. His true zanpakuto allows Ichigo to fire a Getsuga Tensho with minimal effort, because now he simply needs to point his blade towards his target and just gesture a light cutting motion for the attack to be fired. When he fires the attack from his larger blade, it appears in a black color, and it seems to be more powerful than a Getsuga Tensho fired from the shorter blade. This is thanks to the Getsuga Tensho being made up of his Hollow and Shinigami powers. He is also able to use a variation of this attack called Getsuga Jujisho, which allows him to fire a Getsuga Tensho with both of his blades. He fires them one after the other, creating a cross-shaped attack as we see in chapter 583. The attack was powerful enough to critically wound a Sternritter. Within his true Shikai state, he is able to holofy into his Hornum Salvation form by adjusting the energy flow of his powers. I've covered this incredible form in a separate video on this channel, so if you want to learn more about Ichigo's true Shikai and the full extent of his abilities in this form, then I highly recommend you check that out. I've also covered what happened to Ichigo Zanpakuto at the end of Bleach, as many of us were left confused by seeing Ichigo wielding his original Shikai blade during the No Breathes from Hell one-shot chapter. So if you want an explanation about why he is no longer wielding dual blades, then definitely check out that video too. Now, to wrap the video up, Ichigo has many forms, but each one had played a significant role in him realizing his full potential. You could think of these forms as stepping stones until he was finally able to utilize the full extent of his inherited powers. Gradually over the course of this series, he had become stronger and had demonstrated this through his many transformations, from his substitute Shinigami form all the way down to his true Shikai form. Hopefully, I've now covered every single one of Ichigo's forms with the exception of his true Bankai form, which we don't really know much about. So in the future, do expect a video from me where I theorize what on earth Ichigo's true Bankai could be based upon, as we try to piece together some evidence from the manga to back up my theories. As for this video, video, what did you think about Ichigo's true Shikai form? Were you as jaw-dropped as I was when you had first seen it, or did you feel confused by his many transformations that he undergoes? I really look forward to reading all of your thoughts on Ichigo's dual-bladed zanpakuto, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments, and don't forget to check out my other videos on Ichigo's forms if you feel lost by any of his transformations and abilities that he exhibits. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.